In this world we live in today, we are surrounded by so many stressors, distractions, and clear toxicity of environment. And in this place, sleep offers an enormous opportunity for regenerative health. Unfortunately, we've learned a very toxic sleep environment in our modern civilization. And a lot of this comes down to timing, and much of it comes down to the environment that we create around ourselves during that sleep process. And so as you start to think about your lifestyle, I want you to, instead of just pushing for the diet or the fast or the big exercise workout or the new cardio fit thing, start to think about how you are putting your body into a state of regenerative capacity within that sleep state, within those hours between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. What's happening in that time to really give yourself the opportunity to thrive in that daytime space. In this way, I think we can start to reorient lifestyle to a sense of foundation on sleep. And if we were to do this, we would change the way certainly we design bedrooms and certainly the way that we put ourselves in contact with the electronics and everything else that we have so immediately available to us in these hours. Many people have become aware that having a television in the bedroom, for example, is a really bad idea for sleep quality. It's also shown huge detrimental effects on relationships and the like. And similarly, the cell phone has become this ever-present television effect in our lives. And so not only is it important to keep the television out of the bedroom now, but these phones and pads and everything else that we tend to bring in have to be kept out. There's just no way to really put yourself into a healthy sleep state without eliminating the electronic environment. This can be done immediately by moving the cell phones out of the bedroom. Make sure the chargers are in an adjacent room, wherever it is that you're going to be compelled to leave those phones. Don't have a charging system in the bedroom. You're going to be tempted to just drop it on there, and as you wake up from your half-checked email at 11 o'clock at night or whatnot. And so we need to clear that electronic space. So you're thinking about that air environment first. Is there radiation happening? And of course, Wi-Fi is a big piece of this puzzle. And so anything from your Wi-Fi router to the Bluetooth on your smart meter on your home, you want to start to think about how are those in relationship to your bedroom. The federal government has put in a mandated removal expectation on our power companies to remove Bluetooth smart meters from our houses upon request of the owner or occupant. And so you may want to check with your power company to find out if there's a smart meter on your house. And smart meters look different. You can look them up online and take a look at the pictures of smart meters, and you go to the outside wall of the house to find where your meter is at and determine if it's a Bluetooth smart meter or not. If it is a Bluetooth meter, you can go to your website of your power company, and they're required to have a petition for removal of that smart meter somewhere on that website. If you can't find it, you can call them to get that filled out. And once it's filled out, they have a certain amount of time to get that meter removed, typically somewhere in a 30 to 90 day period. And once that's removed, they're going back to a non-Bluetooth field smart meter where they can continue to check the electrical usage in your home without somebody coming out to the house. They're doing it through the grid instead of through a Bluetooth technology, and that's a much better option. The amount of Bluetooth radiation coming from the smart meters has other health concerns beyond sleep. There's cancer concerns, there's autoimmune concerns and the like that have developed over the last 10 years, and so I would say that you want to make sure that these smart meters are certainly not on the wall of a bedroom of a child's room or your bedroom or the like. You want to make sure that these meters are off on the side of a wall that is a utility closet or some other space that's not frequented. And so these are important health measures to take. If it is abutting a bedroom, you absolutely have to make sure there's no smart meter there. And get that back to an earlier technology without the Bluetooth field. The Wi-Fi, there's a lot of devices on the market now that allow you to shut down the Wi-Fi router by time of day. And so you can just put a timer on your Wi-Fi router so that it shuts off at 9 or 10 p.m. and allows that a clean space until your 6 a.m. dawn hour or whatever you're at during the seasons. And so around dawn, if you have Wi-Fi, you're going to have less interference with the biologic system than when you're in that solar darkness. And solar darkness the predominant electromagnetic frequency resonance can happen from these electronic sources. And I believe that's really detrimental to sleep for many different reasons, but one of which is just how biologically active our minds are. The brain really experiences about 50% of the calorie demand of the entire body during sleep. And so you have this huge metabolic input happening. And much of that is going into memory processing, memory storage, and emotional kind of detoxification in the brain there. So when we start to disrupt, especially REM sleep, we see, I think, a accumulation of emotional trauma, emotional stress, unprocessed emotional memory, coupled with a poor processing and consolidation of long-term memory. And so this leaves the brain in a state of ungroundedness when you wake up after fractured sleep or shortened sleep cycles due to poor sleep hygiene. And so as we start to think about these elements, clearing the space of the Bluetooth and the Wi-Fi, you're now changing the environment around a very busy brain and doing very important work. There's no reason for your Wi-Fi to be on during sleep, and so this is one of those simple hacks that just gets you a different, I think, palette or a different canvas, if you will, to set the brain activity into as soon as you shut off the Wi-Fi and get the Bluetooth off the side of the house. So giving that restful state to the brain as it starts to detox that emotional energy of the day. And a lot of the way in which this happens, obviously, is through dreams. And so dreams is a way in which for your subconscious to really process out some of the emotional toxicity of your day. And the dreaming is happening in REM sleep. REM sleep is an acronym for rapid eye motion sleep. This is where your body now paralyzes all the peripheral muscles and allows you to go into this extreme creative state and kind of subconscious detoxification of dreaming. And so during that random eye motion sleep, it's described as such that when you're doing a sleep study on an individual, and if you've got children, you can tell if they're in REM or not because you can see their eyes cycling back and forth very rapidly below the lids. And so behind the closed lid, you'll see the eyes going left, right, left, right, left, right. And so that's rapid eye motion sleep, is where the brain is starting to do this interesting consolidation of short-term to long-term memory, and I think a lot of the subconscious emotional processing. And so to maximize REM, this now comes down to patterns of sleep regarding the sunset and sunrise. And so after you've cleared the space of the bedroom from electronic toxicity, next you want to set the patterns of sleep such to maximize the REM sleep so that you can get the maximum subconscious processing and cleansing of your previous day. And to do that, you want to time that first cycle of sleep somewhere between 9 and 10 p.m. And so with that beginning, you're starting to go into your third cycle of sleep by 3 o'clock in the morning, which is important because that's the liver hour. And so as the liver detoxes and you're really cleansing from the day, around that 2:30 to 4 a.m. kind of mark, you're going into your third cycle of sleep, which is going to be the bulk of it REM and is on the backside of a detox experience. So I think that third cycle of REM is your most important. In your first cycle of sleep that goes for about 3 hours from 9 or 10 p.m. till midnight or 1 a.m., you're going to see a minimum amount of REM sleep. During that, you have a lot of stage 4 sleep if you're sleeping well. The stage 4 sleep is critical to that biologic sense of I am regenerated, I feel good, I got a good night's sleep. That sense of just physical rest, that mental and physical rest is actually coming from the quality of that stage 4 sleep, not so much the REM. And so stage 4 in that first cycle is very important. And if you start that cycle late, if you're starting that at midnight or something like that, or for many Americans it's starting at 1 a.m., they finally get down after checking emails and doing house chores and everything else, they're already going into their liver detox in the midst of what should be their deep stage 4 sleep with their first cycle. And so that can be disruptive, especially if you've had any alcohol. So a glass of wine is the classic one. Drink that glass of wine for dinner, and then suddenly you wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning unexplained. What's happening is your body's activated as it goes into an active metabolism of some of those downstream sugars of the alcohol during that 3 a.m. period. Interestingly, if you haven't fallen asleep by midnight, your appetite starts to get severely dysregulated. And this is the combination of a couple of hormones that regulate both appetite as well as calorie usage. And that can lead to obesity and metabolic differences, fatty liver, for example, consequencing from this. So what happens is ghrelin, which is a hormone made by the stomach lining, starts to upregulate at midnight. And we want to make sure that you're asleep during that time, because in the sleep cycle, ghrelin will shut itself off over a short 30-minute, 60-minute period. If you're awake, you're going to experience real significant hunger at midnight. And this is classically experienced by the college students, and the classic, freshman 12 or freshman 20, depending on which college you're going to. That weight gain that we can get in that first year of college is largely mapped back to the fact that we're often out having fun with friends at midnight, and we're hungry regardless of what we had throughout the rest of the day, and we had that fourth meal. And so that's a natural response to ghrelin turning on at midnight. The reason ghrelin turns on at midnight has a lot to do with the need for growth hormone and other cascading hormones due to that regulate muscle metabolism during sleep. And so in the sleep state, ghrelin is very helpful because you don't respond with a meal, triggers anabolic hormones, and you get into a much more robust muscle metabolism state. And so not only is your brain burning more during the night with that ghrelin spike that is not answered by a meal, you're getting an overall kind of weight loss effect. You're getting improved lean muscle mass activity, and you're not storing those calories as fat during that midnight snacking phenomenon. So ghrelin shuts down around 1 a.m. You go into your second cycle of sleep. And your third cycle will be starting somewhere between, depending on hour of sleep, but if you initiate at 9, you're going to be, by the time you're at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., getting through that liver detox, you're going to be going into your third cycle of sleep. A cycle of sleep, I guess I haven't described, which is that you start in stage 1 sleep, and this is where you'll do a lot of detox of severe emotional experiences. And so this is where children, for example, will tend to get night terrors. Right in those first few minutes of sleep. They'll have a non-distinct dream. These are the dreams like you maybe have a sense that you're running through a corridor and there's something chasing you, but you don't know what it is. There's no visual experience per se. It's more just a sensation of fear of running from something, or an experience of abandonment or a sense of abandonment. So it's these intense emotional journeys in that stage 1 that you'll take in a detox state. And so stage 1, I think, has unknown role in that psychological wellness, but nonetheless it's going to have its longest period in just that first phase of sleep initiation. As you go into phase 2, or stage 2, stage 3, and then stage 4 sleep, you're getting the brain into deeper and deeper states of parasympathetic, which is of course the yin to the yang of your sympathetic fight or flight state that you stay in most of the day. And so in that American lifestyle, we have a hard time staying out of fight or flight during the day. We're rushing to this and that. We're always feeling behind. We're not doing enough. All of those sensations are putting you into the sympathetic nervous system state. And so as you're reaching stage 4, you're finally reversing out of that. Stage 4 is really, I think, the blessing on the body to say, you've done enough. You are enough. You can now rest. And so that stage is going to get maximized during that first cycle of sleep that'll happen between 9 p.m. and midnight. As you push that back, 10 p.m. on, you have the risk of stressing out a little bit of that stage 4 capacity. And so this is why sleeping 8 hours from 9 a.m. Forward to the morning versus sleeping 8 hours from midnight to 8 a.m. is never as restful. You don't feel as good if you've pushed back that sleep cycle. We tend to then feel really groggy in the morning if we're waking up at 8 or 9, and it's a very difficult time getting out of bed. Whereas if you obey those sleep cycles to the rhythm of the day, and you're going down between 9 and 10, then your likelihood of popping out of bed at 5 or 6 in the morning is exponentially improved. And so this has to do with that stage 4 rest parasympathetic state. Interestingly, you'll pop into REM for just a few minutes, usually in that first 3-hour cycle where you're going from stage 1 to stage 4, then into REM. And in that first cycle, you'll pop back out to stage 1. So you're in a mild state of sleep. And this is typically where somebody will wake up thinking, I need a pee. Well, you didn't actually wake up because you had to pee. You woke up because you were shifting from deep stage 4 REM sleep all the way popping up back into stage 1, where you're more alert of your environment. And you suddenly have the wherewithal to sense your bladder or hear some sounds in the house or whatever it is can sneak back in to activate you. And then you blame your bladder, but in fact, if you had better quality sleep, oftentimes you won't wake up. And again, this is something to look at. If you're one of those people that just says, I'm fractured sleep, I can't stay to sleep throughout the night, think about moving that sleep earlier in the day or evening, so that you can really get that pattern aligned, get that deeper stage 4, get that snippet of REM. If you need to get up and pee, no problem. Getting back in bed then, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, and a sense of opportunity here. It's midnight, you're going already into second phase of sleep, in which case almost half of your sleep quality, sleep time in those next few hours can be in REM. And REM is, of course, where you do your really vivid dreaming. Your body is paralyzed during REM appropriately, so you don't act out your dreams. And so this is where you're getting into this real sleep paralysis, which is a really deep state of rest for the muscles, which is also, interestingly, just on the tail end of the ghrelin spike at midnight, now giving you this high degree of growth factors for the muscle in this rested, almost paralyzed state. And so I think, again, I'm painting pictures of glimpses of what we know, but what I'm really showing is how little we know about sleep. We still have no idea about all of the levels of regenerative capacity, restoration, spiritual centering, and groundedness that come out of a good quality sleep. And so it just cannot be overemphasized as you prep for your day. The next piece of the puzzle for me is really getting up out of the bed on the right side of bed, as they say. And my wife has done a lot to educate me on this. I certainly didn't have this practice in my life before meeting her, and she's really revolutionized my life through the understanding of the importance of gratitude. And so she's got me in the habit of, when my eyes start to open, I need to start to acknowledge my gratitudes. And for me, I like doing this non-verbally. For her, she likes doing kind of a verbal mantra and a verbal kind of review of what's going on. So just up to you how you want to do this for yourself. But I think it's an extraordinary practice of how to shift now out of good quality deep sleep, where you're now coming out of your third cycle of sleep. And in that third cycle, between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m., the vast majority of that is in REM. So you can do the vast majority of your dreaming in that stage. Stage 4 and REM are dominant in that 3 to 6 a.m. period if you've managed to get to your third cycle. If you went to bed at midnight and you've only gotten through 2 sleep cycles and you have to wake up at 6 a.m., guess what? You completely missed the third cycle of sleep, and you're missing a lot of that dream detox and memory consolidation and that really dominant stage 4 sleep. And so you're going to be less rested, and your mind is going to be overly active. It didn't fully process yesterday. You're going to have a harder time remembering what you need to do today. And so you are starting off on a very deficient state if you haven't had that third cycle of sleep. So as you charge in that day in gratitude, 3 cycles of sleep behind you, the experience is one of, I think, rest throughout the day. And this is how life should really feel, is there's so much space between the words. There's so much space between the events in a day. And that's where I think 3 cycles of good quality sleep start to really express themselves. When there's a moment between the meetings, or when there's a moment between the phone calls, when you have a moment to really be in a parasympathetic state during the day, I think you have the opportunity for creative capacity in there, and you have an opportunity for spiritual wellness that is going to be missing if you only got those 2 cycles of sleep and missed the subconscious processing of your previous day. When sleep is short and you're missing some of those sleep cycles, you tend to be running at the brain all the time. You've lost your filter, as they say. You say things you wish you hadn't said. You think things that are invasive and repetitive. So you get into these cycles of self-abuse in your head and the like. And this is where anxiety disorders really get fueled. And the most classic sleep disorder patient in my clinic is not presenting with a complaint of sleep problems. They actually present with a complaint of anxiety. And this is typically a mother who's got anything from newborns to 6-year-old children. They can't explain why they have all this anxiety under the skin. They feel like their skin is crawling. They feel overwhelmed by everything. They feel emotionally on edge. They feel abandoned by the world. They feel and yet they can give you a review. My husband's supportive, or my partner's supportive in the home, my parents are supportive. You tick through the list, and they can't figure out why they have this level of anxiety until you go and do a sleep hygiene analysis, and you realize that mom is staying up until midnight, 1 a.m. trying to get the household chores, trying to just have a little bit of me time and maybe watch some TV or try to do some brain downtime. And by that, she's missing that third cycle of sleep by the time she's getting up with the kid at 5 or 6 a.m. and she's compressed that sleep quality down to a big miss, and the rest of the day she's unable to put herself into a parasympathetic state, and the result is this anxiety crawling underneath the skin all the time. Panic attack becomes a real problem. And so these are the goals that I would say can start to really reset this mindset around sleep, which is you want a foundation, and with a good foundation your day is going to feel different. You're certainly going to exercise differently, you're certainly going to eat differently. Interestingly, if you miss that third cycle of sleep and you're going to sleep midnight, getting up at 6 a.m., you tend to binge eat a lot more. And this comes back to ghrelin and a hormone called leptin that is your satiety hormone. With poor sleep, you don't suppress leptin well. And so even once you start eating breakfast or snacks or whatever, you're much slower to respond with a signal to the brain of, oh, that's enough food, or I don't need any more calories, or I don't need any more nutrient intake. And so with leptin not being suppressed, you'll overeat with the snacks and you'll overeat with the meals. And with that deficiency of sleep, you're looking for stimulants. And so you're looking for more coffee or caffeine or chocolate or whatnot. So you're looking for those stimulants of fat, salt, sugar combinations with the meals, and then the drug effects between the meals. So you can start to get a sense of the fact that most Americans are beating themselves up over the fact that they have cravings and emotional response eating and all of these things, when in fact if we just fix their sleep, they would realize they don't have a problem with their character or their self-control or anything else. They're just sleep deficient, sleep deprived. So I hope I'm painting a picture of the importance of sleep here for you. And I wanted to deliver this message to you in nature with a reminder of how much rest nature does. And so I'm literally sitting in a pile of dying leaves and pine needles, sticks, and the like, debris from trees that have gone into this sleep state. And so I think it's really vital for us to take a look into the template of nature to realize nature never does go all the time. Nature never grows all the time. Nature always goes into cycles of consolidation, decay, and renewal. And our companies are a good example of a failure to recognize periods of contraction and expansion. I think it's very detrimental that we put on every board in the world the expectation of consistent growth every year, all year long. It's irrational. It doesn't happen in nature. It's not physically possible. And so we've put our artificial expectations on the world that is not allowing for a rest period. In cultures that don't have the winter cycle, as you reach the tropics where you have really no cycling of the seasons, they've figured out how to do this in the daily routine. And so this is where the vast majority of cultures in the tropics have developed some version of the siesta, where there's the whole society shuts down sometime in the mid-afternoon, and there's resting and there's napping and the like. And that's to kind of put this body in a parasympathetic state that it's not getting some consolidated season of when you have winter months that put everything into a solar winter and growth slows down and there's consolidation, there's nutrient turnover and all of this, not just in the cycles of the forest around us, but actually within our own bodies. So if you live in northern climates and you have a real winter, your body is trying to do that winter rest. And if you're not obeying that and you keep pushing through in New York City and you're still working the 14 hours a day and not giving yourself the rest, you're going to crash. It'll only take a few years and you're going to find a physiologic and physical collapse happen there. And so with that collapse, you're going to have to relearn the rest phenomenon. So let nature be our template. If you develop a pattern of deep sleep patterns, 3 cycles of sleep overnight, and then you put yourself into this possibility of parasympathetic opportunities throughout the day, I think you're going to realize that you're becoming a more natural being. You are integrating yourself back into a template of nature. The final thought around sleep comes down to the issue of human toxicity. It seems that we are capable of screwing up every good thing. And some of the examples I often use is yoga. Ancient technology, this ancient practice that's been put into play by wise peoples for thousands of years. And when it hits Western culture, we develop a synthetic chemical environment around this practice that is extremely disruptive to biology. And so I'm the first to recommend yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong or the like to my patients. But what I see is women are being pressed, especially more and more into yoga, men more and more now as well in the last decade. And so You then take a look, particularly in the situation for the women, is that they are told that if you're going to go to yoga, you should be wearing some sort of tight, elastic, plastic-infused pants and some sort of top of similar material that you're now going to sweat in and dilate the whole vascular system. You're going to breathe hard. You're going to be bringing all of the toxicity of that clothing into your body, and simultaneously you're sleeping or you're resting and working out on a foam mat that is made from formaldehyde compounds. And so formaldehyde is a potent toxin to many neurologic systems within the body, but more importantly, compounds within the foam mat of your yoga mat or the stretch pants of the yoga outfit and the like have microplastics and other compounds that are endocrine disruptors. And so here we are taking an age-old routine that should be part of our rest and relaxation methodology for parasympathetic activation during the day, as well as memory consolidation as we move our soft tissues and myofascial system that seem to be our second neurologic brain. And in the midst of all of that goodness, we throw this chemical exposure. And it turns out we've done the same thing with sleep through the mattress. And so mattresses, as you may have heard, are some of the most toxically produced compounds. Similar to that yoga mat, we're preparing them with chemicals like formaldehyde and actually hundreds of other chemicals that tend to be embedded in there. The most carcinogenic and the most disruptive to the endocrine system are the fire retardants that are required in the United States and many other Western countries. And so we have these chemicals that are off-gassing through our sheets and into our bodies throughout this effort for sleep. And so once you've really started to put the lifestyle efforts towards good sleep quality, I'd highly recommend putting in a really high quality mattress that's of completely organic materials. The organic latex is an interesting new industry and is one of the tools used, but there's a lot of organic cottons, organic wools, and organic coconut fiber. Kapok is a new fiber being used in many of these pillows and mattresses and the like. So take a look at the pillows, take a look at the mattress, and go after one of these wonderful new companies that's really starting to set a new precedent for a toxin-free environment for the bedroom. Once the toxins are cleared, I want you to take the opportunity to really start to celebrate sleep in a deep way. The average American, by the time they're 45 or 50 years old, has a 20,000-hour sleep debt. And sleep debt is something that's been well studied now by the center of the brain, has this switchboard operator system, which does a lot of the data analytics for the CPU chip of your brain that does all of the pattern recognition and all of that. But the hippocampus, being the switchboard operator and pattern recognition piece there, is keeping track of the number of hours of sleep. And if you're not hitting somewhere in that 9 hours of sleep, where it can get through the 3 cycles of sleep as described earlier, it starts to keep track of that sleep debt. And we can show different disease types or disorders emerge from different levels of sleep debt. But the average American with 20,000 missed hours of sleep by the time they're in their mid-40s is a devastating reality. One exciting silver lining to that, if you know you're in that category, as I certainly was at one point in my life, is that it doesn't take much to catch back up. So your brain doesn't have to pay off the whole 20,000 hours. In fact, if you can just pay off 10% of that sleep debt, there's an improvement in physiology. And so if you can start getting the sleep that you need, you can start paying off that sleep debt, you're going to find yourself having a physiologic benefit long before you dig into those 20,000 hours in a significant fashion. And so there is a silver lining of hope that we are regenerative machines, and the fabric of the nature that we were built on is imbued with grace. If we had to really do penance for every time we screwed up our biology, we would be without hope for recovering health and regenerative qualities in our body. But fortunately, we're made of grace. We're here to express and discover beauty, and we're going to do that through better quality sleep and obeyance of those day-night cycles. It's going to put us back in touch with the sun itself and this beautiful moon that reminds us of our cycles that happen every month, changing and transforming, going into a renewal state each month and the like. And so I celebrate those cycles of life with you. I celebrate the ups and downs of sleep quality in different parts of the month and different parts of the year and in different parts and seasons of your life. You're going to go up and down. There's going to be good periods and there's going to be bad periods. But through these fundamental basics that we've laid out here, I think you can really start to get a strong new foundation set that'll give you and your family a new lease on life. deeper reservoir for coping mechanisms, and emotional reservoir is going to give you the ability for richer relationships. And in the end, that's why we're here, is to engage in human relationship, experience beauty in those relationships, and co-create with Mother Nature something incredible.